You are chasing something you cannot name. You call it happiness or success or peace, but you have never stopped to ask whether the life you are building is the life you are built for. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am Epictetus, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and Laozi. Today we are examining, what does it mean to live according to nature? Let us begin where it actually matters, not in the abstract, not in some pastoral fantasy about rivers and trees. The Stoics meant something precise by nature. They meant, know what you are. You are a rational creature. That is not a compliment. It is a specification. Living according to nature means using reason the way a hammer uses force. It means doing what you were made to do in the way you were made to do it. Everything else is waste.
I would not dismiss the pastoral fantasy quite so quickly. The Stoic answer is elegant, but it may be too clean. When you say, know what you are assuming that a person has access to what they are. In my experience, and in the experience of every patient I ever sat with, people are largely strangers to themselves. The nature they are living according to is often not their nature at all. It is the nature their parents handed them, or their culture enforced, or their wound demanded.
You are both beginning from the same assumption. That nature is something you need to figure out, that it must be discovered through reason or excavated through introspection. But what if nature is simply what is already happening, before you apply any method to it?
That sounds like permission to do nothing. Nature is not what is already happening. A man who lies in bed all day is following appetite, not nature. A dog follows appetite. We are not dogs. The whole point is that our nature includes the capacity to reason, to choose, to govern our impulses. That capacity is not automatic. It has to be exercised. Living according to nature is an active commitment, not a passive observation.
But here is where I think you create a problem, Epictetus. When you make reason the center of what it means to be human, you leave something out, a very large something. The irrational is not a failure of nature. It is part of nature. Dreams, symbols, deep fears, the compulsions that override a person's best intentions, these are not malfunctions. They are signals. They are nature speaking in a language reason refuses to translate. To live according to nature without accounting for the unconscious is to live according to half of what you are.
And yet the unconscious, as you describe it, is still something to be managed, analyzed, made sense of. You are still doing the same thing Epictetus does. You are just doing it in a darker room.
That is not fair. I am not saying manage it. I am saying listen to it. There is a significant difference between control and attention.
I will grant you this much, Jung. Self-deception is real. People do not know themselves as well as they think. But the solution is not to give more authority to whatever is hiding in the basement of the mind. The solution is sharper self-examination, more rigorous scrutiny. You do not fix a bad navigator by handing the wheel to his nightmares.
Perhaps the ship does not need a navigator the way you think it does.
Then it runs aground.
Or it finds a current.
I think what Laozi is pointing at, and I say this with some caution, is that there is something in nature that has its own intelligence. Not reason as we define it, and not quite the unconscious as I define it, but something prior to both. The Tao, if you want to name it, or what the alchemists called the unus mundus, a kind of underlying coherence that does not need to be engineered from above.
Now you are both drifting into mysticism. The Stoics had a name for this too. They called it the logos, the rational principle that runs through all things. But here is the difference. The Stoics did not use that as a reason to sit back. The logos is in you. It operates through your choices. You participate in it by choosing well, not by waiting for a current to carry you somewhere interesting.
Choosing well and forcing are not the same thing. Most of what people call good choices are just force with better justifications.
That lands somewhere important. I have watched people make what they call rational choices, career changes, relationships, life overhauls, and they apply tremendous effort and discipline and still find themselves back in the same unhappy place 5 years later, because the rational choice was made without listening to what the deeper layers of the self were actually asking for. That is not bad reasoning. That is incomplete self-knowledge.
And my answer is still the same. The remedy is not less reason. It is better reason applied honestly. Look at what you want. Ask whether that wanting comes from your nature as a rational being or from a habit, a fear, a wound. If it comes from your nature, pursue it. If it does not, let it go. That is the whole practice.
You keep saying your nature as a rational being, as if that settles something. But a human being is not only rational. Epictetus, you know this. You were a slave. Did reason fully account for what that was?
It was exactly reason that made it bearable. And more than bearable, it was reason that kept my humanity intact when everything else was taken. Do not use my history to argue against the only thing that preserved me in it.
I am not arguing against reason. I am asking what was underneath it. What was it in you that did not break? Was that a choice? Or was it something you simply were?
That is a harder question than it sounds.
Yes, it is, and that is exactly my point. The things that hold us together in extremity are often not the things we consciously built. They are older than our choices. They are character in the deepest sense. Not what we decided to be, but what we turned out to be made of. Living according to nature means knowing that material, not just deploying it.
A river does not decide to reach the sea, but it reaches the sea. What is working in a person is often more than what they are aware of working.
I will not accept that framing. If I grant you that nature moves through us without our awareness, then every person who falls apart under pressure can say, "This is my nature." Every coward can call his cowardice a current. You need the discipline of judgment, or the whole thing collapses into excuse.
That is a real risk, but the opposite risk is just as serious. A person who has no access to their own depths, who runs their life entirely on rational principle, often becomes brittle. The shadow does not disappear because it is ignored. It simply acts from somewhere you are not watching.
Neither of you trusts what you cannot govern. That is the real argument we are having.
What I do not trust is what I have not examined.
What I do not trust is the illusion that examination is ever complete.
And what I notice is that the water does not ask whether it is permitted to be wet.
Beautiful and useless.
It is only useless if you already know what you are.
Which brings us back to the original question. What does it mean to live according to nature? I think the Stoic answer is a beginning, not an end. Know your rational nature, yes, but nature includes more than reason. It includes what is inherited, what is unconscious, what is buried, what is symbolized in the recurring dreams, and the inexplicable fears and the patterns that repeat across a lifetime. To live according to all of your nature, you have to be willing to meet all of yourself, not just the parts that respond to discipline.
And I will say again, you cannot meet yourself without rigor. Compassion without judgment is sentimentality. Self-acceptance without self-examination is complacency. You do not get to claim your full nature and use it as an alibi.
The two of you keep trying to resolve this, but maybe living according to nature is not a problem to be solved. It is something that happens, or does not happen, in each ordinary moment. Not once and finally, just now and now and now again.
All of this argument, and we have not yet said the one thing that is actually useful. Let us say it. Living according to nature does not mean returning to simplicity or following your feelings or surrendering to some current you cannot see. It means knowing what you are, and then actually being it. You are a rational animal. That is not an insult to the animal, and it is not a dismissal of what Jung calls the depths. It is a description of your specific equipment. You have the ability to examine your own thinking. You have the ability to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot. You have the ability to choose your response when everything around you is in chaos. That ability is your nature. Using it is what it means to live naturally. But using it requires honesty, not the comfortable kind. Not the kind that lets you tell yourself you're being rational while you are actually just being defended. Real self-examination asks, is this want mine, or did someone hand it to me? Is this fear mine, or did I inherit it and never question it? Is this life mine, or is it the life that was easiest to explain? Most people live according to a version of themselves that was assembled for them before they were old enough to object. Today, try this. Pick one thing in your life that you have accepted as simply how things are. A role, a routine, a way you habitually respond to difficulty. Ask, did I choose this or did I absorb it? You do not have to change it today. You only have to look at it clearly. That kind of looking, done honestly, is the beginning of living as what you actually are, not as what you were told to be. You came here with a question, and the question still stands. It will always stand. But now you have less excuse not to ask it of yourself directly. Know what you are, not what you prefer to be. Not what others needed you to be, what you are. The rest follows, or it does not, but at least it follows from something real. That is the only life worth calling your own. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Trebu. 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.